I'm back with some morning devotions. Took a little break to spend some more time with my family. Of course, we're all spending time with family, but took a little break. But I'm back now, and for the next week or two or three, we're gonna be doing a little theme here in these morning devotions, and this theme I'm calling the 7 next words of Jesus. That's a little play off of what's often referred to as the 7 last words of Jesus, the 7 sayings of Jesus on the cross, which we looked at on Good Friday. But of course, the great thing is that that 7 last words is a bit of a misnomer because Jesus is alive. He's alive and he's still speaking. And so after the 7 last words, actually come the 7 next words. There are 7 post-resurrection conversations of Jesus recorded in the Gospels. And so we're going to spend some time looking at those and just quick little devotions, dropping into these stories and seeing the wonder that Jesus is alive and seeing his heart and his purpose and his power. So this first video, this is going to be a little bit longer because there's some really important groundwork I need to lay for us to really understand what's going on in these resurrection conversations. Because I think a lot of times we get Easter and the resurrection wrong. See, Easter is not just about that if you trust in Jesus, you get to go to heaven when you die. It's not even just that Jesus has conquered death and hell, yay. It's not, and Easter is not just kind of the exclamation mark on Friday's "it is finished," that the Father has accepted Jesus' sacrifice, paid in full, and we're good. It's more than that. In fact, the whole story of the Bible and the New Testament, especially the Gospels, the way they present the resurrection, the foundational truth that we got to get a hold of to understand Easter and the resurrection in the New Testament is that the resurrection is the launch of the new creation. The new creation, the end of the story of the curse rolled back and everything sad coming untrue and tears wiped away and Jesus and his people reigning over a remade world. That end of the story, the new creation, is launched on Easter. Jesus is launching God's new world as he walks out of the tomb. The new creation has started now, even in the midst of the rubble and wreckage of this old creation, which still groans under the curse and sin and brokenness. Yet the new creation has started. Jesus is king and he's bringing that new creation. And so Easter, Jesus marching out of the tomb, the new creation on the loose, is God's kingdom coming on earth as it is in heaven. And it's beginning the end of the story now. So if you can get that, you will get Easter and you'll get so much of the New Testament's teaching. And it's really clear, especially in the book of John. John has really structured his whole gospel to help us see that Jesus is launching this new creation. So think about how the book of John starts. It starts, in the beginning was the Word. It's supposed to mirror Genesis. So this is a new Genesis, a new creation, a recreation now. And so then the book of John continues, and John structures his book to have Jesus doing 7 signs to mirror Genesis' 7 days of creation. And then at the climax of the story, as Jesus hangs on the cross, after these signs are complete, in Genesis 2, it says God finished all of his work and rested on the 7th day. And so too in John wants us to see the last thing Jesus saying on the cross, it is finished. And then he rests on the 7th day, Saturday. And then in both Genesis 2 and John 19 and 20, God finishes his work, rests, and then the scene opens on a garden. And so in John, Jesus finishes all his work, he rests, and then the scene opens on a garden. And so in Genesis, God in the garden creates Adam to be this humanity, head of humanity, ruling over God's world, sort of appoints Adam as the gardener, so to speak, to cultivate God's world and extend the blessings of this garden to the ends of the earth. And so Jesus, and the funny thing is is the irony here in John chapter 20. You know, the women come to the tomb, it's empty, there's angels there. They run away, the women run away scared, they don't understand what's happening. Mary stays there crying. She doesn't know where Jesus is, she doesn't understand what's going on. And she sees Jesus coming towards her. And she doesn't recognize him yet, she's still crying. And John says she thinks that Jesus is the gardener. The irony here, if you've been tracking with John's story up to now, the irony, of course, is that he is the gardener. He is the gardener. He's the new Adam, the new humanity, the caretaker and cultivator of God's new creation launched to bring blessing to the ends of the earth. He's the gardener. He really is. But she doesn't understand. She doesn't see him. And so Jesus' first words to her. If you want to know the first words of Easter, the first words of God's new creation, what's the first thing the new creation says? Here it is, John 20, verse 15. Jesus said to her, "Why are you weeping? Why are you weeping?" And he's not saying that with accusation or condemnation. Be like, stop crying. No, especially as you see in the conversation, this is words full of tenderness, full of compassion. This is nail-scarred hands, living nail-scarred hands, wiping away her tears. Why, Mary, are you weeping? Life is on the loose. The new creation has come. And so for us on this side of the empty tomb, but we're still waiting for the culmination, the end of the story. So even we're living in the wreckage of this broken world, but we know the new creation has started, and we look to the culmination, the consummation of that story in Revelation. And so you know how the story ends. The words that Jesus says to Mary, "Why are you weeping?" are the words God says to us. And with living nail-scarred hands, he will wipe away every tear from our faces. And death will be no more, neither will there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore. For the former things have passed away once and for all. And the one seated on the throne, the living Christ, says, "I am making all things new." That's the end of the story that we long for. And so in the midst of pandemic and quarantine, we know this is not the end, that life is on the loose. Jesus is alive. He is making all things new. And one day he will wipe away our tears too.